Welcome in, everybody, to Inside the Burrow. It's another special edition. We try to keep everything special for you over here on FAU Owl's Nest. Kevin Fielder, Drew Shula, our co-host today, and we are joined by returning coach, new wide receiver coach on Coach Kitley's staff, DJ McCarthy. DJ, how's it going?
It's going amazing.
Happy to be back. I could. So you've been down here in Florida, so the family didn't have to move too far. But how's the adjustment process been for you to come back to FAU?
It's been amazing. Been smooth sailing. I'm from Boca Raton, Delray Beach, so my mom, pops, my sister, and brother is still down here in this area. So I've been doing some couch surfing until I find a place to stay. But I love being back home, being back in that 561. There's nothing like driving down 95 and seeing those exits and seeing that Delray Beach, Boca Raton city signs up on that 95.
DJ, does it ever feel like deja vu when you realize that this is now your third tenure at FAU? And not even consecutively. It's one tenure and then a break and then another tenure, and then you come back a few years later. Does it ever feel like deja vu to be back here?
Well, the first time it did because we was in the Ox, but I'm in this freaking cathedral here. This is a totally different. We built it and never got a chance to play or coach in it and be on this practice field. And so, this new building is unbelievable. It recruits itself, but the people are the same. And that's what it really is. The building's the building, but the people inside the building is what makes this place so special.
I think you mentioned the couch surfing thing, and when we were talking to the men's basketball staff, they mentioned that they had a little frat house set up there with all the coaches, and I know that that's sort of the weirdest part of the transition, right? The
Yes.
first few months where you don't have a place to stay and you still got to do your job. I'm sure you're used to it at this point, but how weird is it truly to sort of feel like a couch surfer for a few months as you try and recruit a football team to play when the season starts?
I think what they're saying is kind of like being back in college. Because back in college, you would go to visit different colleges and see your friends, or go to like a step show or a fraternity thing, and like you didn't know where you were staying when you got there. And by the time you got there, you started meeting people, this and that. And then it's like at the end of the night, hey, I need somewhere to stay. Like, where am I going to stay? And like, so it's kind of that way. But I have family in the area. I got friends in the area, so I'm in a familiar area because I know the people here, and this is home. Like, so I go to Pop's house or go see my brother, my sister, or hang out with friends from high school and people that I've known before. Or I'm making some pretty good money, so I can go get a hotel room now that the check is dropped, right? So it's all good, man. I just love being back in South Florida. I mean, there's no other place like it. It's paradise. It's like I worked my whole life to get here the first time. I had to go up to Canada for a year, and then Lane brought me back, and we won the championship, and now I'm back here to help Coach Kit win the championship here as well. So,
You mentioned being from down here. Spent some time alma mater Boca High after going back, and then Atlantic High as well. I went to St. John Paul. Pope, you probably know it as Pope, but
Pope, yep.
when you first took this job, you probably realized, oh wow, I'm probably one of the only guys with Florida ties right here. So how much have you been on the recruiting trail? Has it helped on those?
Well, when he first hired me, we still had Rock on staff. We had B. Harris, who's from Miami. Then we had Perkins, who's from Miami too. So we had some guys who understood the area. Well, Bree Harris has gone off to that school up in Orlando, and Rock's gone over to Alabama. So now it's just Perk and I. So Perk can handle the Miami-Dade area. I can handle the North Broward, Palm Beach, and Treasure Coast. Santana's here too, who played here, who knows the area. So he's doing a great job of a mix of guys on the staff that have recruited the area, know the area. But this is homegrown. Like my mother was a city commissioner over there in Delray Beach, and I grew up here, played for the Boca Jet, played for the Rocks, played at Boca High, coached at Boca High, coached at Atlantic. So I know this area very, very well. And it's like I know all the exits for each school to go to. It's easy for me to recruit here. I've been recruiting here since 1997 from Palm Beach, Broward, and Dade County. And Coach is committed to recruiting the Tri-County area, Palm Beach, Broward, and Dade. So when you think about it, there's 350 kids that sign the E1 scholarships every year for football, and 200 of them come from this area. So we're going to do everything we can to make sure we lock this area down. I heard a couple of the other staffs before us coming back weren't really doing that. Even the kids we get out of the portal are going to be Florida kids that are looking to come back home. So I'm so excited. I can just get in my car and I can hit 8 schools in 5-6 hours, and then and every school has 2 to 3 players that we want either now or in the future. So I mean, this is just a hotbed for recruiting, for talent, and I'm just happy to be back here.
DJ, I got to ask the most important question of this entire podcast. Does South Florida produce the best high school athletes in the country?
Is there any question? I mean,
that's what
you want to talk
that's
about?
What I'm trying to say. That's what I've been trying to tell people, but they don't want to listen.
I mean, basketball, but we still got some good. But football wise, I mean, it's a no brainer. I've been all over, and there's players everywhere. I've been in Texas. I've been in California. I've been in recruiting Atlanta and Louisiana per capita now. That ain't no joke now. Per capita, they got more players in the NFL. But even Ohio, the state of Ohio, there's players everywhere. But when you're talking about everything you need and everything you're looking for when it comes to football, I mean, come on now. What's better than South Florida?
DJ, I do want to transition a little bit, and you've obviously coached throughout the state of Florida. We won't mention your brief tenure down south for obvious reasons on this podcast.
Forget about that,
but
right?
The FCS ranks obviously at FAU. What have you learned from coaching across the state of Florida that helps you now in this return to FAU?
Oh, that's a great question. So when I was here last time, we was in Conference USA. So we knew we was going to lose recruits to, Central Florida and USF, Miami, and all those guys. But now in the AAC, we can compete with USF. We can compete with the Tulanes. We lost Pratt from Boca High. He went to Tulane instead of coming to FAU. Now we can compete with all those guys. Of course, we're going to raise money in the NLI world and stuff like that. Some things are out of reach. We understand that, but we're going to get our fair share of the players that can help us win the championship.
And so, you mentioned NIL. Obviously, that wasn't even really a thing last time here. But in your short time here, how much have you kind of seen that side of things? Get engaged, and have you seen maybe a little bit of hype around it now that there's a new staff and you guys are bringing in all these recruits? Which so far, the fan base is excited from what I've seen for some of these guys that have been brought in so far.
Absolutely. So I'm a relationship guy, right? So everyone's talking about the NLI, but in order to get to that kid, before you even get to the NLI, you got to have the relationship. So we think about the 4 receivers we brought in, 4 to 4 guys that we brought in and during the transfer portal all have connections with us. We either recruited the guys before. I know the dad. I know the guy who coached him. So the kid JR who came from Virginia, I coached his coach in college. So relationships, right? So, and I think relationship will oversee when it comes to just money, right? Because the kids want to be developed. They want to be cared for. They want to understand. Kids don't care how much you know till they know how much you care. And it's still going to come back to those relationships. So, that relationship that you have with that kid should be able to override, $15,000, $20,000, $30,000. Now, we get into that $250,000 to $300,000 difference. I'm gonna help the kid pack and get going because that's generational wealth. That changes a kid's life and the family's life. But something that $12,000, $15,000, $20,000, that relationship, I think we will override that.
Yeah, and talking about some of the wide receivers that we brought in so far, you mentioned Wilson, Assad coming over from Colorado. Also, some guys returning as well. Jay-Sean Platt, BJ Alexander, and BJ. I was there when he went down at practice, and it just was like the life was sucked out of the building or the outdoor facility. You could tell how much he meant to last year's team. And so, with him specifically too, how much does it help having a leader like him back in that room?
Oh, that's amazing because, I'm coming in, and unlike when I came back the second time, I knew all the kids are in the room. This time, I don't know any of these guys unless I recruited them at a different school. But, having that bridge between the kids who have been here, the leaders that have been here who are buying in. So it's my job as the lead in the room to get the older guys to buy into my philosophy, which is also Coach Kitt's philosophy. Once we get that, then they can help filter down to the younger guys. And, it was a blessing to get some of those guys back that were going off to the portal. And then once I got hired, we was able to capture some of those guys back, right? And it's up to them to take the things that we're trying to give to the group to filter down to some of the younger guys because they'll lead by example and those younger guys will follow.
DJ, I think the interesting thing is your last tenure here was among one of the more successful at FAU, and I think you've got the ring on your finger. I've seen it a few times, and so how important is it for you to maybe get some of those guys that you coached that were on that 2019 team back at FAU to sort of help build that standard, that standard of, you know what, this is what we can do at FAU. We've accomplished it once, we can accomplish it again.
Absolutely. So I've already talked. If you look right there, you got the fun bunch right there behind us. So those are the crew that we had here in 2019 when we shattered the passing records, most points scored, all those types of things, threw for 4,000 yards. So I already talked to Jay Mitch. I've talked to Willie. So all those guys are talking about coming down, being around, because that is so important. Tradition overrides so much. Some of the high schools here in the area, that private school in Fort Lauderdale, that they thrive on that. My son went to school there, so he was able to be a part of that. And just having the kids that have done it here to come back and let the guys who are here now know that, hey, you guys can do the same thing. And all it takes is the hard work, the dedication, the perseverance, and sticking to it and making sure it happens. So all those guys will be back. I mean, and first of all, like, we're in paradise. Who's not going to want to come back to Boca, right?
As someone who moved away from Boca, I want to come back to Boca. It was 6 degrees here a few days ago. I am ready to come back. But I do want to ask, obviously, looking at we talked a little bit about the amount of stops that you've had, but it seems like each stop has had some different titles as well. Special teams coordinator, tight ends coach, little defensive analyst in the NFL. How much do those stops and those different roles help you now coaching wide receivers, knowing that, you're not just coaching a wide receiver, but you're coaching a potential punt gunner or someone who has to play on special teams to make a role fit?
Absolutely. So when I first got hired at the Raiders, the thing that John Gruden did for me is he put me on the defensive side of the ball. We'd laugh and joke about it all the time. We had 3 frustrating receiver coaches because Freddie Bolitnikoff was our receiver coach at the Raiders. We had 2 other guys on offense that were analysts, and they worked with the receivers as well. David Shore, who ended up being the head coach at Stanford, Johnny Morton, who ended up being the offensive coordinator in the NFL. We were the 3 guys who wanted to be in the position at receiver coach. So we were the frustrated guys but we took it all in because we was able to learn so much. Those guys stayed on offense. Gruden put me on defense, so I got a chance to learn the other side of the ball, how the defense is going to attack the offense, what their tendencies are, what they're looking for. So that helped me offensively. And then he put me on special teams as well. So I was an analyst doing special teams. So I got to break down all the film, and I learned so much from the special team coordinator there. And then I would go off with guys like Al Roberts, who's been a special team coordinator in the NFL for 30 years, and just learn ball. So no matter what job came open, no matter what side of the ball, I was able to have knowledge and have a chance to get that job. But if you look at it, if I know what the DBs are doing as a receiver coach, I can put that into our receivers coach knowledge. Like, hey, if they got this foot up, they're doing this. If they're squared like this, they're doing this. So knowing both sides of the ball. And then special teams. You talk about some of the special team guys as returners and just special team players that have played in the NFL that I had a chance to work with. Because once you go to the NFL, if you're not 1 or 2, you're playing on special teams. And then for us in the college ranks, you can only bring 8 to 9 guys on a trip. And those first 6 will be in the rotation. Those other 3 to 4, they got to be on special teams. They got to be run fast. They got to be able to hit. They got to be able to tackle. So all those things have led me to be where I am today and have the knowledge I have that I can give to the players.
Coach, I wanted to ask, I saw a feature I thought it was pretty cool that Florida Atlantic put out on you in 2019. You got interviewed. You said when coaching the wide receivers, you like to give about twice as much good as bad feedback because players tend to hold on to twice as much bad feedback as twice as much bad as good. Where did that start? I'm curious. And do you still plan on doing that?
Right. I call it the sandwich technique, right? You tell them something good, give them what they need to correct, and then tell them something good to end it, right? Because I was a psychology major when I first went off to college at Long Beach City. So as you go through and you learn, Will Shaw, who was my head coach and psychology teacher, he passed away. So I got that from him. Like, as you learn people and sociology and psychology and how the brain works, like people, it's not just football, it's a life. I was married for 22 years. Like, my wife remembered all the negative stuff, not necessarily the good stuff, right? So, and that's just human nature. So in order to break that or work through that, you got to give them twice the good as the bad. We want to change behavior and correct it, right? So, hey, like for instance, hey, Jay makes great route. All right. your hand placement is why you dropped the ball, but that was really a good route. So he heard that he ran a good route. He learned to change what he did wrong, but he heard the good route. He left there feeling good about himself that he did something good.
Kevin mentioned some of your interesting pass stops. One that stood out to me was Brandon Marshall's. I don't remember the exact name, but the NFL Combine preparation.
Yes.
And so you have experience trying to get these guys to the league. Number one, do you think this offense gives wide receivers specifically an advantage? And in your time there, what were some things that made wide receivers stand out from some of the other guys?
Oh man, let me tell you. So that I worked with Brandon 2001, 2 before I went back to Bethune back in college ball. So that was a dream of ours and a vision of ours back in 2008 and 9. Because what happened was Chris Carter had XPE and fit and all that type of stuff here in the area. And I started actually working with them in 2010. But our dream was to have all the top NFL receivers to come back to Florida and train with us, which is what we end up doing. Because who wants to go to Minnesota during the summer? Who wants to go to like Seattle? Like everyone in the summer, the off season, and the spring, they want to come to Florida and hang out and be in the sunshine and be in paradise, right? So I was trying to get Brandon to do that 2008, 2009. He didn't see the vision then, but as he got older in his career and he wanted to maintain his body, he actually, when he got to the Dolphins, he's like, man, I'm going to open up this gym. I was like, oh, really? He said, yeah, I want everyone to train down here. And I laughed. I said, we talked about that in 2008. So he never likes to give me credit for the things I plant, the seeds I plant with him. But yeah, so he opened up a House of Athlete, HOA. And then what we did is we had the NFL Trust pays him $1 amount to any ex-NFL player that's a part of the trust can come work out there. So whether they're on a team, whether they are injured, whether they're retired, they could go work out there for free. We also had what's called the Combine Prep. So all those college kids that want to get ready for the Combine, they'll come spend 6 to 8 weeks with us. And like I said, you got Bomb Arena, you got XPE, you got HOA, we got a lot of things here in the area, but HOA is where we kind of settled ourselves. And what we was able to do, a lot of the top athletes will come and train with us, especially the big receivers, right? Mike Evans, he came to us before he started his rookie year because he wanted to train with the guy that trained Brandon Marshall, right? So Chase Claypool came down. I mean, we had all those guys come down that wanted to, especially the big receivers that wanted to emulate what Brandon was able to do. So I got a chance to work with those guys getting ready for the Combine Prep. And then during their off season, during the spring and summer, they would come down and work with us as well to get ready, fine tune themselves. And we always started. They make a big joke because every time we get started, we're going to start with stance and start. So whether you're a 12-year vet or you're a rookie, when we get on that grass, everyone knows we're going to start with stance and starts, and we're going to get everything from the mud and get from the beginning. So that's what I did. It was great. I did youth programs. We had some high school kids that were now playing for University of Miami, playing for Florida State, all over the country. It was a great experience for those kids and for us, and building that program over there at HOA.
DJ, the thing I noticed, and I noticed this back in 2019 as well, excuse me, was you've coached some really good receivers. You mentioned Brandon Marshall, but Nate Burleson, Brandon LaFell, guys who built NFL careers that wasn't just a one-and-done stop, but became legitimate contributors. Do you learn anything from coaching, I guess, those guys, the guys who could be considered the best of the best, at least in college, and then those same guys who go to the NFL and build long-term careers there?
Absolutely. So I really pride myself in development, teaching and development. So Nate Burleson had 2 offers coming out of high school. He had 12 catches coming out of high school. So his dad and older brother went to University of Washington, but he didn't get an offer from University of Washington. Came down to Idaho to Nevada. He came to Nevada, 50 catches first year, 52 the second year, 138. The development of him over those 3 years. Brandon Marshall wanted to play. He was mad because we weren't throwing the ball much his junior year. He went over to the defensive side of the ball, led the team in tackles, finally got him back over the offense. Him and his dad had to have a sit down like, oh, I'm going to play you at the X, which is what he always wants to play. But we're also going to move you in the slot. We're going to give you opportunity to get against linebackers and get mismatches. And he did that. He broke the record, 72 catches. He had about 1,200 yards, 16 touchdowns, MVP of the bowl game, and then MVP of the All-Star game. And both those guys have the record. Nate has the record for number of catches in a game in college, which is 22. And then Brandon Marshall has a record for catches in the game in the NFL, which is 21. But I say that even Brian LaFell, Early Doucette, all those guys went in the third or fourth round. So not that they weren't first or second round talent, but people didn't see what I saw and how they developed. And all those guys played 8, 9, 12 years in the NFL because of the knowledge and the development that they had from college to the pro. I mean, they would go to the combine and kill it on the board, understand it, know the hots. Because when I try to develop and teach, I try to teach a receiver what quarterbacks are looking at, what the O-line is looking at, because I want to develop you holistically so you understand the game from the neck up.
When you see a guy like that go to the NFL and dominate at the combine, dominate the pre-draft, when you're watching from your coach's office, how much pride do you take in knowing that that guy gets a chance to live out his dream? And I mean, for you personally, you got to see him from day one to there to develop into that kind of guy.
Correct. Yeah, it kind of brings a tear to my eye, right? Because the one thing we do as coaches, we're trying to develop, we're trying to get them. I tell the kids all the time, if you listen to me, your life would be better than your dreams. Because most of the kids don't even know what to dream about because they haven't seen it before, right? It's not like the kids I work with are all NFL kids and their dads play in the NFL. There's a few of them and they understand it, but most of the kids I have, they didn't come from those type of backgrounds. So they don't understand what is really out there and what they really can accomplish through the game of football. So it brings joy to me. Like it's there's nothing else like it to take a kid, like you said, a high school kid that you recruit, you get him to commit, he finally signs, then you watch him as a freshman, he develops up to a junior, he leaves early, and then he's living the life that he never even dreamed of.
DJ, I wanted to ask you about Coach Kitley, the conversation on bringing you back to FAU and what really excited you on the kind of brand of offense he wants to bring here. It's not the same thing, but it kind of, for FAU fans, kind of reminds them a little bit about what Kiffin was planning on doing here.
Oh, man, absolutely. So as a receiver coach, when you're in this type of offense, they call it the air raid. That means you have 3 to 4 to 5 guys of your guys on the field that you're coaching. You get a chance to maneuver all over the place. And I liken it to like being a basketball team, right? Now, our wide receiver room will look like a basketball team. We're going to have a Michael Jordan. We're going to have a Scottie Pippen. We're going to have a Ron Hopper. And everyone's going to play their role. And it's good. They're going to be interchangeable. I mean, I was watching, everyone debates about the Bulls and the Golden State Warriors, which had the better team. If you look at that Bulls team, when they had Kukos, Rodman, Jordan, Pippen, they had a 6'6" to 6'10" guys with their arms out like this, and they could stretch from sideline to sideline. Defensively, they just covered the whole floor. Well, as I see it as receivers, right, we get a chance to put those guys out there, and they get a chance to be, number one, our 6'6" guy next to that 5'9" guy is going to be open just by standing next to him. Our Paxson or Steve Kerr, who's out there running intermediate routes, getting in and out of breaks, he's going to have mismatches against that linebacker or that nickel guy who's trying to cover him or that safety. So we try to match it up. And then what Kitley has done throughout the years, because I remember when he was at Houston Baptist and they first got started, and then he went to Western Kentucky and broke all those records. Then watched him again when he was at Texas Tech, because in our video we get to watch all these guys, so you take nuggets from everyone. That air raid is kind of what they was doing at Baylor and without the splits and stuff. So it's just exciting being a receiver coach in this type of offense, knowing that 3, 4, 5 of my guys are going to be on the field, and we're gonna be the momentum changer in the tempo setter for our offense.
The thing is, though, that there really hasn't been a coach run the air raid in South Florida or Florida in general. And there's been some people bring bits and pieces of it, but never, I guess, the quote unquote true air raid. Correct. How much does a South Florida athlete fit into this offense?
Well, it's basketball on grass. I mean, like I said, it's 350 in the state of Florida going to sign D1. And then when you talk about from the Treasure Coast to Miami, I mean, think about all the receivers that have played in the NFL, that played in college ball. You can go to any corner, any park on the corner, any city, you're going to see guys running around and this is what we do, right? So now we get a chance to do organized chaos, get the balls in those playmaker hands out in space. So whether it's 6'5" or 5'9" or 5'8", I mean, we got something for everyone on the ledger.
DJ, I like to ask this question to every coach that we interview on here. What's the one moment in your coaching career that you take more pride of over anything else?
Well, there's a lot, right? So, having a guy like Trenton Holiday, who wasn't a punt returner because they told him he couldn't learn how to catch punts and lead the SEC in the nation, right? You know, you talk about the Nate Bros and the Brandon Marshall, Brandon LaFells, Mo Clay, all those guys. The guys I recruited for receiver ended up going to DB and being a first-round pick like Mo Claiborne or Pat Peterson down in Pompano Beach Ely. But I would have to say the greatest moment was when I got a chance to coach my son Guy here at FAU.
I wanna go back to the staff a little bit. I noticed a lot of the staff members, they're still kind of in the early stages of their career. You look at Coach Scove, Coach Vasey, guys like that, and more as well. How does that kind of help young players having coaches who are still, hungry too, trying to build their career as well? And do you kind of see yourself as maybe a little bit of the veteran for, not just the players to lean on, but potentially some of the coaches as well?
Yeah, they call me Uncle Mac around here, right? I'm the old guy around here, but I'm young at heart, and it is. So I remember being a young coach and being able to relate to the players, right? So my first job, I think I was 24 years old, coaching over at Boca High, and we had Corey Ivan, Perlo Bastine, and Steve Belisari. I was 4 or 5 years older than those guys, right? So now we got these guys who are kind of like big brothers to the players that we have, because especially with these COVID kids, like we got kids who are 24, 25 years old. We got guys on the staff that are 28, 30 years old. They're only 4 to 5 years away from an age difference. So it's so important to have the mixture of those young guys that can, have the energy to run around campus, make sure kids are where they're supposed to be, can relate to the kids, especially the kids nowadays because things are so different. But it's also important to have that older guy on the staff that can help the kids understand where they're going, right? This is where you are now, but this is where we're trying to get you. I have a theme called Boys to Men. Like New Edition is my favorite group, and they have a song. So our job is to take that 18, 17-year-old kid or boy and turn him into a 22, 23-year-old man. So that process and having the balance of having older brother, uncle, dad, father figures is so important on staffs.
And so I also want to ask, you were here obviously in one of the most FAU successful of all years of all time, and we heard a lot about the last couple of years about culture and building that culture, and the winning culture you guys had in 2019. That was something. How do you guys go about building that? Like, in your opinion, what's important to build?
Well, it starts with the head man, right? So he's coach talked about the frat house, right? So we have about 5 to 6 guys living in one of the houses together, and it starts with the staff. So as long as the staff has the continuity and the togetherness and the closeness, and whether we're outside playing wiffle ball or going bowling or hanging out, having lunch and dinner together, it starts with us, and then it filters down to the players. So it's up to us to have, you come in as a new coach, you meet your players, you call their parents, you have them over for an occasional meal. Chris Carter and I will be working together. We're going to take the guys out bowling. We're going to have them over to Chris's house because he has the biggest house, then hang out to get to know all the receivers and really earn that trust. So that's how you earn that. That's how you get that culture. These kids in the weight room are busting their butt in the weight room. They're doing their runs. They're hugging each other, loving on each other, pushing each other. And that's how you build that culture. But it all starts at the top with Coach Kit, man. He's doing a good job. The strength coach is doing an amazing job. I think you guys are going to be, we got spring ball coming up here March 11th, and you'll be able to see it. I think we're doing things the right way.
You mentioned the going from the Ox to the Schmidt, and you sort of realized that you guys built it and then didn't actually get to play in it or participate in it or
Right.
learn from it. And so what does it say about the growth of FAU and football in Boca that you guys go from the Ox behind an airport to this beautiful practice facility that, as you said, recruits itself?
Correct. Yeah, so I can go way back further than that. I used to live across the street. I used to ride my bike. I used to chase the planes, race the planes when they would take off and ride my bike and try to keep up with them and stuff. So I remember there was 5 buildings on this campus, right? You got the 2 dorms, you got the administration building and the library. So the growth of this place and we're not landlocked, right? There's still more land out there that we can build on, and that's a great example of what the head coach in 2000 saw when he started the Ox building, because when he built that was a big thing, right? And now to see where the Ox is to now is just unbelievable. I mean, it's just to see the growth on this campus, not just in athletics, but just the school and how it's grown and how it's blossomed. It's just, I remember day one, like 1972, in 1979 when I was riding my bike on this campus, just to see how this campus has grown and blossomed. An on-campus stadium, I look at it, the practice fields here, the arena. They used to have the celebrity slam dunk contest at that arena back in the 80s. Now look at it, they remodeled that, Final Fours, it's just the baseball field, the tennis center, the beach volleyball. To see this place grow is just amazing.
Now, outside of football, what's your favorite thing about being back in Palm Beach County, the 561?
Oh man, I get to see my family and friends that I grew up with, people who know who I am and still love me to this day. My Facebook, I'm old, so my Facebook was flooded when the news came out. Every night I get to see a friend or someone from high school, a classmate, or I get a call from someone, and I can actually walk 2 miles to the beach, hang out, grab some sand, and come back. My son and I did that the other day. So just being back here in Paradise, being back where I grew up, it's truly a blessing.
And I don't want to take up too much of your time here. We'll start to wind down, but I want to ask, what are you kind of looking forward to most accomplishing, whether that's potentially developing one of these wide receivers to get to a pro level, or is it getting FAU back to, the goal, or maybe a combination of both? What are you looking forward to the most?
You hit it right on the head, right? So coach brought me here to take care of my room, develop my room, get those guys ready to play, help with the culture around here. Because, the 2 times I was here, we won championships, right? To help him in the area, to make sure I introduce him to the right people that he needs to talk to and need to lean on in this community, which this community is ready to explode, just like they did with the basketball team in the Final Four run and when Lane was here before. And then just, we want to bring back that dominance that we had here. We want to win championships. We want this city and this area deserves that, right? So think about the old Miami days when everyone was a Hurricane fan. Well, why can't everyone be an Owl fan, right? So, and then half the teachers in the South Florida area have gone to FAU to try to get their continuing education. So every school you go into, a principal, a dean, assistant principal, a teacher, they all have ties here. So we want to get that community back around here. We want to fill that stadium with not just the students, but the people in the community, 561, 954, 754, 305. We want to get you all back here.
Last question from me, DJ. As a guy, I'm in Delray Beach right now, exit 51, Linton Boulevard. I need a go-to spot, either Delray Beach, Boca Raton.
Oh, easy. That's easy. You got to go to Boston's on the beach. You got to get that. Got to get the clam chowder over there. Right next door is a little party spot. You can go there. You got the Ave. You got freaking Meisner Plaza. Just whatever you want. You want steak? You got steak here. We got seafood. We got a little Cajun. Anything you want, we got for you, buddy.
Now, DJ, I want to finish this off with something a little bit more fun. What's your Mount Rushmore of guys that you've coached?
You're gonna get me in trouble.
Well, let's just go Mount Rushmore of guys that you recruited and developed. Because you may have coached a guy for a year, but a guy that you developed, recruited, that you saw their growth from day one.
Oh man, Brandon Marshall, Nate Burleson, Brandon LaFell. And then the one guy I didn't really recruit, but I got to put him on there because he was a walk-on. This is a great story. Matt Willis. So Matt Willis was a soccer player that played soccer in California at Survey High School. My brother-in-law coached him in soccer. He ran track. He was at UCLA. Didn't play high school football. Didn't play football at UCLA. He gave up his track scholarship to come walk on the football team, end up being our third leading receiver, and played 4 to 5 years in the NFL and played in 2 Super Bowls. So that'd be my Mount Rushmore, because his work ethic and everything that he put into it, as far as not being a football player, but worked his butt off, earned a spot on the football team, had catches against Notre Dame, USC, helped us beat USC for the first time in 7 years. Then get a chance to go on and play in the NFL and play in the Super Bowl with Baltimore and playing the Super Bowl with Denver Broncos, man. That to me speaks volume about the type of character that person was and what hard work can do for you.
Now, I do have to ask this because I remember when John Mitchell was going through FAU and we all thought he was the smartest man alive. Is he the smartest wide receiver that you have coached in terms of academics? To get a doctorate and be Dr. Mitchell is quite impressive for a football player.
He's one of my all-time favorites. I can say that. I've had some other guys that were really, really smart, but So I started recruiting John Mitchell when I was at FAMU. His whole family went to FAMU. So when I was there, they came over to see us. I think it was a sophomore or junior year. Got a chance to spend time with him. Then, of course, he picked FAU before I got here. So when I got here, it was like, oh, my gosh, look at God work. So I got a chance to work with him. He went through the shoulder. Remember, he had the knee injury. Then he went through the shoulder that last year that I was here. And he was able to develop. He was our third leading receiver. You know, obviously, Bryant was the leading. Harrison was the leading. Then we had the guy that transferred in, D-Lo, that transferred in from South Florida. And then it was Dr. Mitchell, man. Dr. Mitchell did his thing, and now he's in med school at the University of Florida.
Does he make you call him Dr. Mitchell every time you
No, he
call
hates
him?
when I do it. That's why I do it all the time.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I did not know that whole story. That's actually cool. The more you know.
The more you
But
know,
I
right?
want to right. What I wanted to ask. So you mentioned it. You're from down here. You want to fill up this stadium. What's your best local Delray Beach local who they're probably rooting for UF or FSU whatever, but they're from here. Why should they take on the FAU Owls as their
Oh
team?
man, that's easy. This is your university, right? This is your hometown university. Obviously, people went to school different places, or they had fans. Because when I grew up, FAU didn't have football, right? So, but now that FAU has football, this is your university. This is your hometown university. You can go get a ticket for $5 to $10, or you can go get a box, whatever you want. We're gonna have entertainment. It's entertainment, right? You want to bring your family somewhere. You want to do something with your family, or you just might want to have a night out with the boys, or a girls' night out. We have everything you want here. We got the what's that? The owl? What's that, Landon? We got with it, huh?
The deck.
You got the deck. You go hang out the deck. You can go to the fourth floor, hang out with the people over there, to rub elbows, smooth over there. But I mean, you can sit in the sun, watch some great football, or a night game. You still have a chance to hang out during the beach during the day, come to a night game, or vice versa. If it's a day king, go hang out and still have your nightlife. So, I mean, what better way to have family time, fun with your friends, than to come to a football game here at FAU?
DJ, I want to close this off with one question as the special teams aficionado of this group. And I will watch punt gunners all day if you give me an opportunity. Just real quick, does special teams make special teams?
So special teams got to be special, right? So you got to understand there's 3 phases of football: offense, defense, and special teams. There's going to be between 30 and 40 snaps of special teams, and they have the biggest impact of the game. Punt is the longest play in football, so you got to wait for the snap. You got to get the punt with a 3 or 4 point hang time. You got to cover. You got to tackle that guy who's a really good athlete, usually better than the athletes who's covering the kick. You got kickoff. You got a collision going on. You got kickoff return where you're trying to set up a return and try to set up the offense. So special teams have to be special, man, and it takes a special person to be on it.
Florida Atlantic coach McCarthy, coach, thank you so much for hopping on with us. Best of luck in the recruiting trail the rest of this little off season, and good luck in spring ball and beyond. We'll be following along and rooting you along as well.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, y'all.
Yep. Take care. You have a good one. Roll Owls, Florida Atlantic coach DJ McCarthy. Thank you so much for hopping on with us. Drew, Kevin, I think, after now, talking with the new member of this staff a little bit, but not new to FAU. I'm excited to hear his vision. I don't know about you guys, but I think the wide receiver room this year is going to be something special.
I think I've got one more year of eligibility. I'll go out there and run routes for him right now if he needs. If he needs a little slant route for 3rd down and 5, I'll go run it right now. It'll probably not look pretty, but I'll go run it.
Drew, what are you thinking? I mean, I know you Kevin's the special teams guy. We'll say you're the offense guy. You watch a lot of different schemes and whatnot. What does an elite wide receiver coach do for an offense?
Oh, I mean, it does everything. I mean, well, I one thing I've seen the past week I thought was so funny is people are going like, "Oh, Justin Jefferson has no playoff wins." Well, that's how you know that dude's a legend. So that just shows what a elite wide receiver can do for an offense. And hopefully we have a few of them. We have our signal caller. So last year the receivers were not up to par. So hopefully this year they're above and beyond what we've seen as of past.
Yeah, and I think from a recruiting standpoint, having Coach McCarthy around right now, especially, with Rock going up back to Auburn, as he mentioned, and losing some other Florida guys, Kalen Skipper, who is an Owl, and Harris, as he mentioned. So he's definitely carrying a lot of the water right now in terms of Florida recruiting, along with Coach Perk. So that's really good for this staff. And we're going to see at the February, once more high school recruits start to, come in, I could potentially see, some more Florida guys coming in. But we'll see. The portal's not closed yet either. And so, more additions to be made for sure, like what we're seeing so far. But want to switch over a little bit, talk about hoops. Another 2-game losing streak on deck. But, even in these 2 losses, it's tough, outside of these scoring droughts late, they do good things. We saw Caleb Glenn get really high that second half, lead the comeback with back-to-back triples, and it hasn't been able to translate into late game execution now. Concerned at all with execution over the past 2? Is there still time to? What are we thinking?
I don't want to sound hypocritical, but when you add 10 new transfers, whatever the official number was, I don't remember, but this is effectively a team built from the ground up, right? Like, this is not a team of guys who played together, who have the experience together. And so I think that it's so difficult to compare it to any other team outside of other teams in college basketball right now who built a team through transfers. And it's different levels, right? Like, don't get me wrong. FAU is not Indiana. FAU is not Arkansas. FAU is not K-State. FAU did not spend the same amount of money on the guys that they got, but the numbers support this, right? Like, if you want to build a team through transfers, and it was not Jacobs's fault, it was not the coaching staff's fault that they had to do this. Right? Like, they lost John L. Davis, they lost Elijah Martin, they lost Vlad Golden. They weren't competing with Michigan, Florida, and Arkansas for these guys. Like, you can't sell division when you've got John Calipari calling your phone, when you've got your old coach calling your phone, when you've got the Florida Gators and Gatorade money calling your phone, right? But it's this is just the truth of it, right? And Jacobs will be the first one to tell you, everyone who coaches college basketball will tell you, you can't win with 10 transfers. And so I look back and I watched a little bit more of that game afterwards. And everything I came back to was that the problems with this team right now, the problems that I have in terms of the playmaking, in terms of some of the times where it just feels slow, it feels a little clunky. To me, that is just an issue with personnel. That's an issue with 10 guys who don't know where each other are on the field, or on the court, excuse me. And you look at I got the chance to watch Houston live. You watch Houston play, those are 10 guys who played 4 years together. They know where everyone is on the floor. You watch the old FAU teams, right? They know where everyone is on the floor. Elijah Martin knew where Vlad Golden was going to be. I think you see spurts of that, but the truth is, right, it's so hard to judge a team when 10, 11 guys are brand new, playing their, I don't even know what it is, 15th, 16th game together. You can't teach a lot of stuff that chemistry wise that you want to have for an offense that is successful. And so I don't want to make this sound like I just don't have expectations, because I have expectations for FAU basketball, but let's see what it looks like in February. Let's see what it looks like in March. I'm not concerned yet of what this looks like long-term. The truth is, all you have to do is win your conference tournament to make the NCAA tournament. You have the easiest gift in the world of winning a conference that looks wide open outside of the team that lost yesterday. I refuse to call them by name on this podcast sometimes. So, but there is one team at the top of this conference, and there are about 5-6 teams just jumbled up. You don't know what they are on any given night. And I think FAU falls into that second group of, they could be the best team on the floor on any given night, and you wouldn't be surprised. They could also be the worst team on the floor, and you would be dang, how do they go 4 minutes without a bucket? How do they go 3 minutes without a bucket? They're getting good looks. Everything that I look at on this is I don't think they're getting bad looks offensively. But when the shots don't fall, there's always this adage of well, it's a good shot if you make it, it's a bad shot if you miss it. man, a wide open 3-pointer in the corner is not a bad shot. The fact that Leland Walker or whoever, like, I don't even want to call him out by name, but like the fact that someone misses a corner three, like that's not a guy's, like, that's not because they're not talented. That's just because the shots don't fall for you. And so it's so hard to judge like anything about these last few games because I think so much of it is just lack of chemistry, lack of understanding of where everyone is on the floor. And so that, and then some of the personnel issues, right? Like the other things, like when you add 10 guys, not all 10 of them are going to hit. Like the transfer hit rate is not 100%. It's, I think they've hit on a few, but like you can't win with a 100. No one has ever had a 100% hit rate in the transfer portal. And if they do, I want to find that coach because I want to know what he's doing to get 10 guys in and all of them being successful at the same time.
Yeah, that it's tough, right? And so that's I'm not. It's tough. You can't really say you're out on this team because it's still early, and so there's a pivotal stretch coming up that shooting struggles where you're getting open looks and not hitting them. Those can be overcome eventually. Let's say FAU's not recruiting guys who can't shoot and having them shoot. What's going on here, and so what it's just going to come down to if this team can click from beyond the arc, which that's the focal point of this offense. Obviously, they were trying to get in the interior a little bit more. We've seen, especially over the last couple of games, in my opinion, since the Memphis performance. But if they can get that going over this next stretch, you got a Rice game that Rob Lanier is a good coach. He's probably got Rice playing better than they would with last year's team or whatever. Rice has definitely taken a step up, but at home against a team that is lower than you right now in AAC, that's a game you need to win for confidence sake. And then you have a week off. You do not play again until the 26th. Again, a team that a lot of people, even national media, are looking at as the second best AAC in North Texas. You're going to have a week. And you're going to have one off day, maybe two, depending on how Jacobs does it. You're going to have 4 days without the travel. So 4 days off, which in the middle of conference play doesn't happen a lot. If they can find their consistency a little bit offensively during that stretch, it'll go a long way. And then if they can go into North Texas on the 26th and find a way to steal a victory, it's not going to be easy. North Texas is playing really good basketball. They've got guys who have really taken a step up out of the portal. Brennan Lorient being one of them, but it's not out of the cards that FAU goes in there and wins that game. And if they can, then all of a sudden, like you mentioned, look where they are in February. If they can rattle off a couple more wins, then it's something serious. So it's not out of the cards just yet. But the concerning thing is it doesn't seem like there has been a go-to guy. Penny Hardaway mentioned this, and when FAU came back and tied the game and took the lead against Tulane, after that, Tulane was able to rely on their go-to guy. Caleb Banks took over. Rowan Brumbaugh, who's their number two, wouldn't say he's their go-to guy, had as well. I understand the relationships, family over everything, Monch, trying to get everyone involved at all times. But it just seems like if they had a guy who was able to just take over in those situations, then they don't fall off trees. We saw Trey Carroll do that at times, and if he's going to be that guy, but whoever it's going to be, it doesn't have to be the same guy every game, but somebody in those late game situations for FAU needs to kind of step up and match that Caleb Banks energy. And is that maybe not the easiest thing to ask? Maybe, but if they're going to try to compete in the AAC tournament, they're going to need one of those X factor type of players. That's what we saw with PJ Haggerty doing with Memphis this year. We saw him, do it last year, UTA too. Didn't translate to or Tulsa, excuse me. That's Jordan Ivy Curry, but didn't translate into tournament wins. But if FAU has that collective, mantra, which is important, that's what gets you a tournament win plus an X factor player, I think this team will be in a pretty good position.
I think truth is you're probably not just finding an X factor player in the middle of the year. Like I just like, and that's not a slight on any guy on the team because I think that they're all talented, but like you can't just go tell a guy and bring him into the coach's office and go, we need you to score 20 points tomorrow. Right. Like that is like probably a little bit more video game-ish, like perfect world mentality than you'd like. But I do want to ask this question. Outside of Memphis, and potentially North Texas. Is there any team in the American that you sit here today? What's today's date? The 17th of January. Is there any team in this conference where you sit there and go, FAU can't beat that team on any given night? Because I know my answer. But do you guys think that there's a team outside of Memphis where you can realistically say that FAU can't beat them if they were to play 3 days from now?
No, definitely not. My thing, yeah, I mean, that's the thing is like you have the big dog Memphis, but like that's having a lot of faith in the fact that they're not going to collapse like they have in the past, and it might have started yesterday. And then North Texas has been the most consistent, but I mean, I don't think they're world beaters. And then after that, maybe Wichita State is third. Maybe UAB's in that conversation, and I definitely don't think any of them are unbeatable. In fact, you know, I take it as you will, but Vegas, you know, they have us favored against UAB they have us favored against ECU when we play them. So I think, you know, it doesn't even take our effort to beat them, but you know, our team is on par with all of those teams. Like, and that's the good part about being in this conference is that get hot at the end and you have a chance to you have a good chance to make the tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, UAB is a little bit to me like that one team, but I'm not saying they can't beat them, but they're a team to me that definitely struggled in the beginning for whatever reason. But if you look at that team, they have an X factor player in Jax Lendenberg, and they have guys who returned back. I mean, Tony's been there 100 years. Christian Coleman is on his second year with that team as well. And then Vasquez as well. So they've got a couple more as well. And so that's an experienced team that would scare me in the AAC. You know, they get knocked out by UTSA, and Austin Clonch gets his signature win in year one. But you know, that's wishful thinking, perfect world mentality as well. They're gonna have to find a way to eat one of these. You know, a UAB, a Memphis, a UNT, and that's why, you know, they have this matchup with UNT on the road coming up. That's going to be basically what you're facing in Texas. UNT fans are the most that attend by far, and then outside of that, if they can figure out a way to compete and beat UAB on the road in their final matchup, that's what you want to see. You want to see them build on their last performance and find a way to, you know, winning the road to the AAC, but come tournament time for sure.
It feels like, and maybe you guys disagree with me on this, and so I could just be completely off base in my analysis on this, but it feels like FAU is like, if this is like breaking through and being the cream of the crop in the American outside of Memphis, FAU's like right here, because it feels like every single game they have a stretch of 5-10 minutes where you're like, okay, can they sustain this for an entire basketball game? And then they take a step back. But then the next game they have another moment like that. And against Tulane, it was that stretch at the end of the first half where they were able to tie the game, take the lead, right? And like, you see these moments every single game. And so, like, for the fans hitting the panic button, right? Like, I know that there are probably some who are like, well, this team made the NCAA tournament last year and they were a shot away from winning another NCAA tournament game, right? Like, they're right there. They were like, and I don't know how else to say this, like, they're right there. Like, it may take is one game. And it could be Rice. It could be North Texas. It could be another game where, like, if they just have one complete performance where it's like 40 minutes, you sit down, we're on this podcast again in a week or 2 weeks or whatever, and we can all say they played like a 40-minute basketball team. You know, they played 40 minutes of their best basketball, and it was not a close basketball game. For 40 minutes, you didn't feel like there was a little ounce of doubt that they were going to blow the game or that they were going to lose, right? Like, if they have one of those performances, it feels like the entire season can turn around, right? And like, I say this because we've seen it happen before, not necessarily with FAU, but like we saw it last year with Temple in the AAC championship game, right? Like, that was a Temple team that was it Temple last year who made it far?
Gambling allegations.
Like it was the same with Temple, right? Where they got one win and they just carried that. And so, like, this idea that you have to play 40 minutes of basketball, I keep saying 60 as if it's a football game. You don't have to play 60 minutes of perfect basketball. That doesn't exist. But if you could play 40 minutes of one game of it, like all you need is one game. We saw it last year in a few conference tournament games. Freaking Long Beach State winning their conference tournament after being like the worst team in the conference. Like once you get to that neutral site conference tournament, win one, you're in kind of thing. Like that's all it takes sometimes is you just got to find a way to win one game that you didn't think you had a chance of winning. And like, I mean, hell, we saw it with FAU in the Final Four run. I guarantee you, if you ran back a simulation of the Tennessee and K-State game back 100 times, FAU probably loses that game 95 times. But like this idea of like they didn't lose the one time that they played on a neutral site because their guys made one more shot down the stretch. And so like it's very easy to panic or to be really concerned over 2 losses. I understand that. Like that's just human nature of being a basketball fan in college basketball and a college basketball fan with expectations. Welcome to the world of expectations. This is no longer a team where you like are happy that they win, that they go over 500 and they're playing in the CBI. And that's good. Like I don't want to be playing in Daytona Beach in the CBI anymore. That was fun the one time we did it. I don't ever want to do it again. But like, welcome to the world of expectations. Welcome to the world where every game's going to feel like the worst thing ever when you lose. And then you get 2 days off of like not having to watch them play and you go, okay, they're kind of close. And so like, that's why like you're going to ask me this, like this is going to be a question that's asked every time, I think, because it has to be a question that's asked every time. Like, are you concerned? I'll be concerned in March. Because like this is a team that can win in March, right? Like this is a team that if they just get hot at the right time, they can turn this into a run and be a 13 seed, right? Like, and like truthfully, would anyone complain if this is an NIT team this year? Like, would anyone complain if they win 3 games in the American Conference tournament game, maybe they get to the final and they lose, right? Like purely hypothetical. I don't think anyone would sit here and go, wow, that was a bad season. We almost won the American Conference Championship with a first-year head coach and 10 new transfers in. And I just want to finish this off with, like, you look at the transfers, guys, most of those guys can come back next year. Baba Miller can come back. Caleb Glenn can come back. Leland Walker can come back. Trey Carroll has eligibility remaining, right? Like, you probably aren't going to be building a brand new team from scratch next transfer portal. And that's the world you want to be in. You would ideally have 6 or 7 guys next year where you feel comfortable with them being a rotation piece on the team. And then you go in there and you add 3 or 4 guys that elevate your team, right? Like you add the 4 guys that elevate your roster. And that's effectively what FAU did for the most part under Dusty May, right? Like they developed the core of 5 or 6 guys. And then they went out and they added Jalen Gaffney. They went out and they added guys who just elevated that team just a little bit more. They played their role incredibly well. So, like, I just want to like keep preaching big picture here because to me this is a big picture season. If they close this season out and it's really bad, right? Like, because I think that's also a hypothetical that exists. Like the range of extremes. There's the extreme that they win the American conference tournament and make the NCAA tournament. There's also the other extreme where they just struggle this year, right? And like it's not a good year and they have more losses like they did against Tulane. Then yeah, you have every right to be concerned because this team is too talented to be that bad. But like if they are competitive and they give themselves a chance in the American Conference tournament game, am I wrong in thinking that's a good season? Like am I wrong for thinking that over 500, maybe you don't make the NIT because the NIT rules are kind of stupid this year. But like maybe you're just good enough where like it's the stepping stone towards next year, right? And like I think we're all forgetting that this is still a first-year head coach and 10 new guys trying to play basketball together with about 16 games understanding each other. And like maybe I'm wrong in thinking that was going to be a little bit challenging and that it's not going to be pretty for 100 100% of the time, but like just find enough pretty to make it a fun season. And then we'll figure out what it looks like once we hit March or once we hit the off season.
Yeah, no, I agree a lot. Although I see FAU and Tony Patelis' CBI bracketology thing, I'm hoping FAU can at least, if they don't make the NCAA tournament, obviously get in one of these postseason tournaments, preferably the NIT though, because what I like about the NIT is, I won't say I'm an NIT fan by any other stretch, but you get to host a playoff game on your home court if you're one of the better seeds. And if you win a lower seed, then you get to host around 2 games. So, I think that's an intriguing aspect and something to potentially look forward to if you don't win the NCAA or make the NCAA tournament.
Because I was about to say, I just want to make the NCAA tournament. If we're just like playing hypotheticals on which tournament we want to make, can we just make the NCAA tournament? Is that a thing that we can do?
Yeah, it's a little bit harder. If you get a pray hard enough or do whatever you do to try to make it happen, maybe. In terms of hypothetical non-NCAA tournament, I don't think the NIT would be necessarily bad. Seton Hall won it last year, did not work out this year, unfortunately. So, just because you do it on the NIT doesn't mean anything. But I agree definitely the fact that whatever happens this season, there is something to build on next season. And that's something Jake has been very, very confident about since the Charleston Classic when he won talk about how he loves his guys. They love it here. I don't plan on leaving, and I don't think they do either. Whether that actually happens, I don't know. But I do think there's a solid chance he retains some of the contributors and potentially all of them. And if he can, it's going to be fun for FAU fans. And speaking a little bit closer rather than looking months down the line, in this Rice game, I do want to see consistency, like Kevin mentioned, 40 minutes of good basketball on the home court, which the last couple games haven't been too friendly to the old FAU fans out there. But you know what? They're still coming out. Last game was a sellout, almost a sellout, pretty close, whatever. But that was good to see. I don't know if Rice will be, but whoever there, give them a show, build something going into that week, find your confidence, and hey, maybe you find a walk-on player in the dunk contest that happens on Sunday, because that's the marketing promotion for that game, a dunk contest. Any FAU students that watch this podcast, first of all, shout out to you. Second of all, go Rosselli on Twitter. Get yourself in the dunk contest somehow. I'm sure there's a form of some sort. But get a good atmosphere, get a win, go into that bye week with some energy, and let that on this podcast. Who knows what happens? Yeah, but you know what? I'm still excited. We've got guys setting career records. Leland Walker for 1,000 points. Bob Miller, I believe 500. So guys are doing well. It's just not necessarily a collective yet, and if they get to the point where it is, this becomes special too. So, folks, thank you so much for taking some time to listen to this episode of Inside Burrow. I know it's fun the first half, watch all that DJ McCarthy interview. Tons of good stuff. Watch it back over and over again, because I don't know, DJ McCarthy seems like a great guy. A lot of good energy bringing to this program, and make sure to come out on Sunday, Rice, 1 p.m. Throw a dunk down if you're a student and have a great time. For Kevin Fielder and Drew Shula, I'm Robbie LaStella. This has been Inside the Burrow.